You've probably written a million JavaScript functions, right? But what if I told you there's a subtle difference between the two main ways we write them? A difference that can change everything about how you code. It's not just about syntax, it's about a whole new way of thinking. So let's get into it and break it all down. Okay, before we go any further, this is the single most important idea you need to grasp. Seriously, if you get this one thing, everything else is going to fall into place like dominoes. Here it is. In JavaScript, a function isn't some kind of magic spell. It's just a value. That's it. Just like a number or a piece of text, it's just data that you can move around, store, and copy. So here's our game plan. We're going to start by really hammering home that functions are values idea. Then we'll put declarations and expressions side by side. After that, we'll see the real magic with callbacks, talk about a tricky timing issue, and finish up with a super simple guide on which one you should be using. All right, let's dive into our first section. I've been saying a function is a value, but what does that actually mean in practice? Let's take a look. Okay, so think about it like this. A function is basically a little bundle of instructions, an action you want to perform later. The function's name, say hi, isn't the action itself. Nope, it's just the label you stick on the box. The real power, the actual code, that's the value inside the box. And I can prove it to you. Check this out. What do you think happens if you try to alert the function say hi, but you forget the parentheses? It doesn't run. Instead, JavaScript just shows you the function source code. It's like you're asking it, hey, what's in this box? Not do the thing in this box. The parentheses, that's the go button. And because it's just a value, you know what we can do? We can copy it. Look at this. Let func equals say hi. We haven't made a second function. All we've done is created a new variable, a new label called func, and told it to point to the very same action that say hi points to. So now calling func dot or say hi does the exact same thing. Two buttons, one machine. Okay, I think we've got it. Functions are values. Now let's get to the main event, the two different syntaxes we use to create these function values. All right, side by side. On the left, you've got the function declaration. You've seen this a million times. It's its own thing, a complete statement starting with the function keyword. It's like you're telling JavaScript directly, create a function for me and call it say hi. But now look at the right. That's a function expression. See the difference? The function itself is on the right side of an equal sign. It's just another value, like a number or a string, but we're assigning to the variable say hi. And hey, here's a quick pro tip that trips up a lot of people. See that semicolon at the end of the function expression? You might wonder, why is that there? Well, it has nothing to do with the function itself. It's there because the whole line is a let statement, a variable assignment, and in JavaScript, we end our statements with a semicolon. That's all there is to it. Okay, so who cares, right? Functions are values, big deal. We have two ways to write them. But why does this matter? Well, this is where it all comes together. This is the aha moment. This idea lets us do something incredibly powerful called callbacks. Think about it. If a function is just a value, then we can pass it as an argument into another function. We're literally handing one function a set of instructions and saying, hey, run this action for me later when you're ready. How cool is that? Let's make this real with an example. Imagine we have this ask function. Its only job is to pop up a question. It has absolutely no clue what should happen if the user clicks yes or no. So what do? We just pass in two other functions, show OK and show cancel, as arguments. These are our callbacks. Now, the ask function can just call back to whichever function is appropriate based on the user's choice. We've literally passed entire behaviors around like they're just pieces of data. And this is where function expressions are just chef's kiss. If those yes and no actions are only ever used for this one ask call, why even bother giving them names and defining them somewhere else? We don't have to. We can use a function expression to create them right there on the fly inside the function call. No name, no clutter. These are called anonymous functions, and they are perfect for these kinds of one and done jobs. So this is really the big mind shift, right? A function isn't just code, it's an action. And the beautiful part is that we can pass these actions around from variable to variable and then tell them to run whenever we feel like it. This is what makes JavaScript so incredibly dynamic and flexible. Okay, but there's one last super important difference we need to talk about. And honestly, this is the one that causes the most bugs for beginners. It all comes down to a single question: when is the function actually created? This is all about a concept called hoisting. Here's how it works for function declarations. Before your code even runs, the JavaScript engine does a quick scan. It looks for all the function declarations like functions say hi, and it basically creates them and puts them into memory. What does this mean for you? It means you can call a function before it's actually written in the file. It feels a little like magic, but it works every time. Now, function expressions, totally different story. They get ignored during that initial scan. A function expression is only created when the code execution actually hits that line. So what happens if you try to call it before that line? Boom, error. The variable say hi might exist, but at that point, it doesn't have a function inside it yet. This is probably one of the most common JavaScript errors you'll see. Okay, so knowing this timing difference, let me ask you a question. What if you want to define a function conditionally? Like if something is true, create this function, otherwise create a different one. You might be tempted to just stick a function declaration inside an if block, right? Seems logical, but be careful. A declaration inside a block like this is only visible inside that block. It's like it's trapped in a little box. As soon as you leave those curly braces, poof, the welcome function is gone. Try to call it and you'll get an error. So what's the fix? You guessed it, a function expression. Here's the pattern. You declare the variable, let welcome, outside the if block. That way it's always accessible. Then inside the if block, you assign your function to it. See? The welcome variable is always there. We're just deciding what action to put inside it based on our condition. This is the clean, correct way to do it. Whew, okay, that was a lot of detail. So let's bring it all home. How do you actually decide which one to use? Let's make it super simple with a clear rule of thumb. Here's the deal. Your default choice should almost always be a function declaration. Why? Well, they're just easier to read. That function name structure really stands out. Plus, that whole hoisting thing gives you a ton of flexibility in how you organize your code. You should really only reach for a function expression when a declaration won't work, like when you need that conditional logic we just talked about, or when you're passing a quick nameless function as a callback. Simple as that. All right, let's do a super quick recap to lock this in. 1. Functions are just values that represent actions. 2. Declarations are hoisted, created before the code runs. Expressions are not. 3. Use declarations by default for their clarity and flexibility. And 4. Use expressions when you need them for conditional stuff or for those handy callbacks. So when you really get down to it, this isn't just about syntax. It's about a whole new way of thinking about your code. Functions stop being these static, boring blocks and start becoming these dynamic, reusable actions that you can pass all over your application. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Now that you know this, what's the most powerful action you can imagine building and sharing in your own code?